Hey guys, it's Kesara, and today I'm going to be doing my September TBR. So my theme for the month of September is sci-fi, and I'm really excited for it. I feel like I haven't read that much sci-fi this year in general, so it is time to cram as many sci-fi books into my head as possible, and I'm so excited for it. Of course, there will be some fantasy on this TBR as well, because you guys know I read so much fantasy, and there's like no way I can have a TBR with like no fantasy on it. But this TBR is going to be mostly sci-fi, and I can't wait to get to it, especially since my August TBR did not go very well, but most of these books are ones that I've been meaning to read for the longest while, so I don't think I'm gonna have trouble with it. Also, most of the books that I did end up getting to in August were sci-fi, so I feel like that's just the kind of mood that I'm in right now, so September is probably going to be very good for me. As always, we are gonna start out with my classic for the month, and of course, I have to get a classic sci-fi novel, and that is Foundation by Isaac Asimov. So last year, I think in the month of September, I read The End of Eternity by Isaac Asimov, and I was completely blown away by the story. It was such a creative story, and it just drew me in the entire time because it had a really interesting mystery as well with all of the amazing sci-fi elements. So I've been meaning to read more Asimov, and Foundation is just like the place to start from what I've heard. So I'm really excited to get to this. I have the audiobook for this on Audible as well, I believe, as well as the other two books in this first trilogy. So if I end up really loving it, there is a chance that I might binge read this trilogy, because I remember last year after I read The End of Eternity, I just wanted to read everything by Asimov, but I had just so many other things that I wanted to read at the time, so I didn't end up getting to it, and I didn't have access to a lot of the books. But since I have access to 3 of his books already, there's a good chance I might get to them. I'm really excited for this, because this, from what I understand, this is like major space opera sort of sci-fi, like Empire style sci-fi, which just seems like the type of sci-fi that I would like, because I love a good like Empire style fantasy, but like this one is in space, which is just even better. So I feel like I'm going to absolutely love this, and hopefully I can get to more of the books in this series as well. Okay, so for my reread this month, I'm gonna be rereading A Little Hatred by Joe Abercrombie. This is of course in anticipation of The Trouble with Peace, which is coming out on September 15th, and I am so excited, guys. I'm so excited for this. This is the first and second book in the third trilogy in the First Law world. It's the Age of Madness trilogy. This is one of my favorite like fantasy worlds of all time. Joe Abercrombie does such a great job of developing characters and having such interesting, unique, morally gray characters. I love everything about this series and this world, and I cannot wait for the next book in this series. So I will definitely be rereading A Little Hatred, and I can't wait to get to A Trouble with Peace. I've already pre-ordered it, so I'm getting it on release day. That weekend, I will be spending the entire weekend just reading The Trouble with Peace, because I'm just so excited for it. I absolutely love the characters in this series. I love especially this second trilogy, in which we have some of these new characters, which are the newer generation, but we still get some of the older characters from the first trilogy. I love that aspect of it. That happens a lot, I feel like, in series where the first series was like really popular, but I feel like with this second series, it is just as good as the first series, and I'm loving it so much. One of my favorite characters of all time is in this series, and I can't wait to see more of that character and all of the other characters in the next installment. So the next book that I want to talk about is a new release in the month of September by one of my auto-buy authors. So even though it's not sci-fi, it's a book that I am really excited for, and it's kind of like a weird book to be excited for, but I am, and that's Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. I absolutely love Fredrik Backman. He's written some of my favorite books of all time. I'm really excited to read this book. I don't know anything about it other than the fact that it's called Anxious People. I'm guessing that it's going to be about people who are anxious. Fredrik Backman has a way of writing contemporary fiction. It's very character driven, at the same time has like very complex social like situations happening. I'm really excited to get to Anxious People. I don't know if I'm going to get to it in the month of September, but it's coming out and I'm really excited for it. So there's a good chance that I'm going to pick it up just because I get on like the whole hype train. So this is one of the few that I really wanted to talk about because there's a good chance I'm going to pick it up, but I'm not going to push myself to pick this one up because like it's probably going to happen anyway. The first book that I'll actually be reading in the month of September is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. So this is a new release in the month of September. It's coming out on September 15th and is an adult sci-fi series from the author of The Inheritance Cycle. Most people know the first book in it is called Aragon, which is a series that I read in high school and I absolutely loved. It's one of the first series that I read that made me fall in love with high fantasy, and I love a good sci-fi novel. It's my sci-fi month, so I'm really excited to read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I've actually already started this because I was astonished to find out that I was approved for an arc of this book from NetGalley. So I'm about like 20% of the way into it so far. I'm really enjoying it. This is kind of like a space opera sort of book. It's set in the distant future, and our main character's name is Kira, and she kind of falls into an alien room tower sort of thing, and this is kind of like the first contact with those aliens. It doesn't doesn't go great and it kind of starts a war. That's really all I know about it so far, but I am definitely really enjoying it and I'm excited to see where this is going. It has the writing style that I remember from the Inheritance cycle that I liked without the things that annoyed me about it. So far I'm really enjoying this and we'll see how much I like it. But so far it is really good. I'm also planning to continue on with the theme file, starting with book 2 of The Waking Gods by Sylvain Neuval. I'm really excited for this. Sylvain Neuval is one of those authors that first time I read one of his books, I was immediately drawn into the story because he has a very action-packed writing style that I absolutely love. So I'm really excited to continue on with The Waking Gods. This one is following off of Sleeping Giants. I actually read Sleeping Giants not too long ago and I loved the ending so much that I was so excited to start Waking Gods that I kind of just picked up the audiobook and started it like right away. But then I put it down because there's a time skip between the two books and it kind of annoys me to continue on right away with the sequel when there's a time skip between the two. I feel like I need to have a time skip in my life as well, so I decided to wait a little while. It's been a while, so it's time to start The Waking Gods and I'm so excited for it. By the way, this series is best known for the format because it has like a file format. You're never actually in a person's head. It's done through like interviews and like files and things like that, which I really love. It's like an epistolary format that I didn't realize this about myself, but apparently I love it when books are written this way, so I'm really excited to continue on with this. And this is another one of those that like, if I'm like really in the mood, there's a good chance I could pick up the third book in this trilogy because I have Only Human as well. It's one of those series that I feel like I could continue on right away because it's really short also. It's not like super long, and Sylvain Neuval has that type of writing style that I just absolutely love. So I'm also planning to pick up Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. Octavia E. Butler is one of those authors that I found this year and I absolutely love everything that I've read by her. I've read, I want to say 5 of her books by now. Maybe it's only 4. It feels like I've read 5 of her books, but they were all amazing. I've loved every single thing that I've read by her and I'm really excited to get to some of her more popular works. Parable of the Sower, I think, is her most popular work, or maybe it might be Parable of Talents, which is the sequel to this. Either way, I'm really excited for this. Also, this is a like futuristic book set in the early 2020s, which, I mean, I don't know. It definitely seems like this book can very much relate to what we're going through right now. It's about climate change and it's kind of a dystopian because of course there's gonna be a near future dystopian, but our world feels a little bit like a dystopian sometimes. So I don't know, I'm really excited for this. Octavia E. Butler does such a great job of creating worlds and kind of like getting to the darker side of things that I just absolutely love, and I'm really excited to get to more of her works. If I have time, I might pick up the sequel to this as well because I have both of them and I'm really excited to get to both of them. The next book that I'm planning to read is The Dark Forest by Cixin Liu. So this is the second book in Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. The first book is The Three-Body Problem, which I think I read in September of last year and I really enjoyed it. So I have no idea why I didn't continue on with this series. I'm super excited to get to this one. This is another like sort of first contact with aliens story, but it's structured in a very interesting way that I really enjoy. The writing is a little bit drier than you would expect from like American writing because this is translated from Chinese, which I think is really cool because it's definitely set in a different place on Earth than what I'm used to, and I really enjoy the world that this is in. So I'm really excited to continue on with this series and hopefully I can get to the next one very soon as well. I am also super excited to get to The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin. I've heard such great things specifically about The Left Hand of Darkness. The month before last, I read my first book by Ursula Le Guin, which is A Wizard of Earthsea, and it surprised me a lot because it was a lot more than I was expecting from that book, and I really enjoyed it. And this one, I'm actually expecting a lot from it. So this is like a very far in the distant future space fantasy about a winter planet. So it's an ice planet basically, in which a human ambassador goes to that planet. And I think there's some like cultural, societal things in here that I'm really excited to read. Like I'm just really excited for this. I've heard this book is very heartbreaking. I love Ursula Le Guin's writing. I love this type of book. And I've heard that this book is like a lot of people's like favorite book of all time. And I want to see what all the hype is about. So I'm really excited to get to this. So this one's a bit of a wild card because I haven't heard anyone talk about this book yet. And that's The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. But I am so excited about this. So this was my book of the month club pick for the month of August, which I obviously didn't get to it, but it is a sci-fi book. It is about parallel worlds, which you guys might not know this about me, but I absolutely love parallel worlds. It's one of my favorite tropes of all time. I'm always looking for a good multiple worlds or parallel worlds type of book. And so when I saw this, I was just like, immediately, I need to have this book on my shelf like right away. So I'm excited to get to this. I don't know anything about this other than it's a parallel worlds book, and apparently like the main character is special because like she can travel to many of these worlds, because in this universe you can't travel to a world that you have a counterpart that is alive in, but apparently her counterparts in most of the other worlds have already died, so she's like one of the few, so she can travel to many worlds, which is just kind of cool. I'm really excited to get to this one as well. Also, I just have to say, this cover is awesome. I absolutely love it. I'm really excited to get to this book, and hopefully I'll end up loving it. And if I have time to, I also want to try and get to Children of Time by Adrian Chipkowski. This is an author that I've heard really great things about. I've heard really great things about Children of Time in general, and it's my sci-fi month, and even though I had planned to read a fantasy book by him first because I just prefer fantasy in general, Children of Time is the book by him that I hear the most about, and because of that, it just makes me want to pick it up more and more. If I have time to, I'll pick up Children of Time in the month of September. I don't know if I'm gonna finish it, but I'm really excited for it. I love time-related sort of sci-fi books. I'm excited from that aspect of it. I've also heard like one of like the point of view characters is a spider or a colony of spiders, which is just really cool and interesting, and I'm excited to see how he does that. So like I've heard so many great things about Children of Time that I'm just super excited for it. I have the audiobook from Audible because it was on sale like a couple of weeks ago, so hopefully I'll have time to get to that one in the month of September. So before we get to my fantasy book series challenge, I'm going to talk a little bit about my TBR poll. I've decided to discontinue the poll itself just because I've been having a really hard time following my TBR. It's just not helping because I try to prioritize that book, but it might not be a book that I'm actually that interested in, and it's just not working for me very well. But I will read the last poll book that you guys chose for me, which was Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I believe this is like sort of a video game space sort of sci-fi, like it has multiple things in there. I actually did see the movie, so I should know more about this than I do, but it's just really popular and I'm excited for it because the movie was not great, but I can see that there were good bones to it that I really felt like it was kind of like the Aragon movie where it's just really terrible, but the story itself was probably still really good in the book form. So I'm excited to read the book and hopefully I'll like it more than the movie. So now it is the time for my favorite part of this video, and that is my fantasy book series challenge. So I got a bunch of fantasy series in this little mug and I get to choose 2 of them to read this month. So let's see what they are. So we have the Powder Mage trilogy by Brian McClellan. I'm really excited for this. So I have the first book for the Powder Mage trilogy, The Promise of Blood, on Audible. So I'll be listening to the audiobook for this. I've had it on my Audible account for a while now. It was on sale like sometime in the past year or so. So I decided to get it because I knew I was going to read it for this challenge. I'm really excited for this. I don't know anything about it other than it's a grimdark fantasy series, but a lot of people have read it and loved it. So I'm really excited to get into this book. Now I get to choose one more. And we have Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. So the first book in Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn is The Dragon Bone Chair by Tad Williams. This is an older series. It's more of a classic fantasy series that I've heard really great things about that I really don't know that much about either. I believe this one has more classic, like epic sort of high fantasy tropes to it, but I have never read anything by Tad Williams. I've heard that he's a really great author, so I want to try some of his works. So I am really excited to start with The Dragon Bone Chair. So that's all I have for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I post videos on Sundays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, so consider subscribing. And if you want to be notified as soon as I upload, you can click that little bell icon. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.